night shopper in the dark. Warrior Works. Warrior Works.
Welcome to Warrior Works. So I left off the Loom Fixer yesterday, stating that I wanted to clean up the blade a little bit, and off camera that's what I did. I mean, it was a fairly simple process. I have a 12-inch belt on my right there. Not a belt, 12-inch, right there. 12-inch contact wheel. I put on my 2x72 grinder, and that 12-inch seems to capture the radius of a lot of the case knives that they would use, and it worked fine on the dagger that I repaired yesterday, restored. And it worked great on this Loom Fixer. So this Loom Fixer had some pretty deep gouges, and there's still a couple up near the top there. Let me try to get the light on that. Right there. And I didn't want to take away too much of that. And I ended up flattening the blade so the tip wasn't rounded off at the nose, and I didn't want to take off too much, so I kind of met it and brought it down just slightly in the front there. And I'll do the final sharpening once this is added onto the knife. But the type of sandpaper that I used on this, I started with 220, I think it's 220 or 240. And that's because I wasn't trying to remove a lot of material. I was just trying to, remove a few scratches. And you don't want to be pulling off a lot of material off these knives. If the idea is just to get it uniform and remove surface scratches, don't start with low grit. I figured that 220 would be a perfect one to start with, and I went up to a worn down 240, which is almost, I went from the 220 to a worn down 220 to a 400 grit belt. Then I finished with the Scotch-Brite belt, and it leaves this really, I think, beautiful finish on there. It's not polished, but you can see the uniform striations in there. And that's kind of how it was from the factory. And I cleaned up the tang. You can see it's a 74. Really cool looking blade, cool looking knife. And the only other thing I did off camera while I was over there is I cut the pin stock for the spring pin. And it is 3/32, and it is a little tight, so I might have to go back in and round this off just a little bit because I don't want to crack anything on there. And I got a smaller pin to go through the bolster and the blade pin. So I'm going to stop the camera, bring this down, sand this down. You guys have seen me do that a few times. I don't see the point of me having to have something to edit later, unless you guys tell me in the comments, do you want me to keep this kind of stuff in? I think it reduces the time of the video, and it's really a bunch of filler that if I explain what I'm going to do, you guys get the idea, and I don't have an hour and 20-minute long videos. So again, I'm going to put this in my drill, kind of spin it down just a little bit so it fits fairly loosely in there, not tight, because when you peen over the heads, you expand that pin quite a bit. And the last thing you want to do is expand it and it bust out the material that you're pinning. So I'm going to go spin this down a little. Okay, that didn't take long. So I brought it down, and as you can see, it's easy to push through. That's what I want. It slightly can wiggle just a little bit, and I want that because the pins are going to expand, and it'll expand even in through the spring pin, or the spring itself, and it'll make it where I'm not blowing out the handle material. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to put a chamfer in the ends right here of those bolsters, so the pin material has somewhere to expand and grab onto. Even though I have Dremel tools to do this, it doesn't take long just to put a little bit of a chamfer on there by hand spinning it. And you know, I actually have been thinking a lot. I restored this this old pin vise, and it's I think the jaws can open up large enough to hold that, and I constantly have been wondering if it could be utilized to hold that. And you know, it's funny, the things that you wonder and you just don't do because you're focused on other things. And had I not brought this up just now, I don't know if I would have taken the time to even try to do this. You know, this is a very old pin vise that I restored, and to be honest with you guys and tell you, I don't even remember how to change the direction of the ratcheting thing on there. There's a little screw, and it's been so long since I use this that I don't know if that screw is kind of seized up in there because it's not even turning, and I don't want to ruin it. But I want to be able to use this. You would think it wouldn't be such a difficult thing to change that direction. That piece. Oh, there we go. Yeah, told you. Not something difficult. Yeah, sometimes I just overcomplicate things and overthink things. I think that's one of the problems with like overanalyzing things, is you end up sitting there trying stupid things first when you should try the easiest thing. So I think that looks a lot better than this this handle on there, and most definitely feels a lot more comfortable. Not only looks, if it didn't feel comfortable I wouldn't do it, but let's see how it works. Works just fine. I was hoping to get some ratcheting. Yeah, I'm getting a little bit if I press on it. That's doing what I need it to do. So this is going to stay on there. It looks good. I mean, look at that. This is a good old Pratt company, made in Greenfield, Massachusetts. And this is when tools were made for, you know, with pride. Back in the day, this is a beautiful, beautiful pin vise. And generally what these would be used for is to put like little drills in there and you know, drill fine holes and things like that. But since I got so used to the Fordham, I never do it with that. And I like this so much that I wanted to make this a part of my everyday tools that I put it in my custom caddy that I have right in front of me that has most of my smaller hand tools and marking tools. So yeah, I'm happy I was able to find a good use for that, and that's going to stay there. I'm going to learn how to put that back in place. So all right. Get the blade in. Let me put the camera down so you guys are actually seeing what I'm doing. And there's that finished sod buster that I'm going to release a video on here today. These are both Brother Milo's knives. And he sent them to me wanting this customization done. And since this was customization that didn't require like rehandling, you know, I thought that was something I can easily accomplish. In about a half of a day or so. So what I'm doing, and I don't know why I'm having a hard time locating the, oh, that hole is plugged up with something. I was trying to put that rear pin on, which I need to cut another brass pin the same size. I spaced out having to do that because for some reason, maybe because of the sod buster, I assumed that the tube would act as a pin, forgetting that I actually had a pin as well. Another thing I'd recommend is Dremel sells these bits. These ones right here, and these are what I use in my Fordham, and they have the sizes I need. They have 1/8, 7/64, 3/32, 5/64, 1/16, 3/64, and 1/32. I found that this, for all my knife making and my jewelry making, these bits have been kind of my go-to. And I have, I think, 3 of them just in case I lose or break some. But because I'm somebody who doesn't like to get rid of stuff, I'm missing, because that one broke, the smallest one broke, and I'm misplaced one of these, or it broke. I imagine it broke because I'm pretty good at putting these back. I'm utilizing these when I really should just get rid of them and use that. I mean, they're pretty inexpensive. And you know, I don't have a lot of space in my shop. I had a pretty massive cleaning of my shop last summer. I got rid of quite a bit of things that I just hadn't used in a long time, and it felt good to do that because it gave me some breathing space. And it's crowded in here to begin with. It was a lot worse before I did that. All right. So I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to spin down one more of these pins. I'm going with brass because that was what was in there. I do have nickel silver, but I'm going to just keep that for the bolster. Alright, well, I'm going to stop it and I'll be right back when I'm done with this. Okay, let's try this again. So, let's get this rear spring in. I didn't put a point on this one. I figured it would be easy because it fits and I'm not going to be adding it later. It's just, this is where it's going to be, and you can see how adding that little bit of a point would have helped me substantially had I just done it to begin with and not messed with this. All right. So I want to, before I start hammering things in place, I want to make sure that when I execute these things, everything will work out just fine. So I actually think I want to trim this tubing, you know, before I start getting things in place. So I'm going to pull that pin just a little bit below because I'm going to go over to the bandsaw, cut just proud of the surface on both sides, and that way I don't have to mess with that later. And I think that's about the fit. You know, it is a little tapered on this side. That's why I don't want to just make it flush to that end. So I got to be careful. I don't want to cut into the handle material. You know, always consider that. So I got the lanyard hole. Of course, when I flare it out, I'll clean it up again, but just for good measure, I just want to knock down any of those sharp burrs so I don't get caught up on any of that stuff. Never pleasant getting any kind of splinter. Metal splinters seem like they're the worst. Now we got the blade. All right, so what we have here is the knife semi together. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to file the one end. push it through to where I need to have that probably cut. I'm leaving about a 1/16 on each side, or about 1 millimeter on each side. And like I said before, it's much easier mushrooming the head of a pin when it's flat. So I want to hold this, or pin this first, because this is what's probably going to fall out if I spin it around. I got a gauge that I cut out a little notch, and this is 0.016 of an inch. So what is that? 1/16 or 0.16. I'm sorry. I'll flash it on the screen here in a little bit. I want to say hundredths or thousandths. I think it's thousandths of an inch. But I put that in here so the blade doesn't get like too tight. And I'm going to work on this side first. Spin it around and look on this side. And I'm hoping I gave myself enough pin, because if I didn't, I'm going to have to redo it, because I want enough to mushroom out in that space. I'm thinking when I start sanding those down, those will disappear. Hindsight, you know, I probably would have gave a little bit more, or I should have gave a little bit more, seeing how much mushrooming there was on each side. This rear pin and this spring pin, I'm going to be spinning the heads on these two. So actually yeah, I got more than I need. Some reason that didn't. Okay, blade moves just fine. No, with that out, maybe just a couple good taps. You don't want to get too much. Look for blade centering. That's centered just fine. Now I'm going to put it in the vise with the leather jaws, squeeze that down and put that rear pin in place, and we'll see how it operates after that. Give me 1 second. Okay, that was quicker than I thought. And just compress the pin or compress the spring back into the back of the frame. Put in the pin, and because we did the proper preparation and we tapered it what we needed to, the pin just went right in without having to use a hammer or anything. And It's still flush to the back. I still got to clean it up. There's some little like ding marks and things like that, but they can happen after final finishing. But good half stop, solid snap. It's not exactly down the center, but pretty doggone close. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to trim these pins so I can go spin them. And I won't bring it over there. You guys saw me spinning heads on the one of the other videos. I think it was a Schrade video. And basically what I have to do is I have to properly prepare these pins to the right size, or at least height, above the surface. And part of that is just, you basically calculate the width of the pin, and you have it sticking up roughly a third of that, I would say, is my estimate. Chris, the guy who makes head spinners, he explains it much more eloquently than I can. I just found what I know works, and I've been doing that. So, and I know he sits there with a guide on his thing to get these pins perfectly flat, so they leave good dome heads. But I think, you know, if I take the time and I use a hand file, my results have been pretty good as well. So, and that head spinner is a pleasure to use. I mean, you got to be careful you're not doing too much, because you can really mess something up pretty quick. If you compress it too tight. Yeah, so that's about the height I'm looking at for that. So I need to match that on this side. And you know, again, one of those things I never think about, but I'm sitting here, I use this file all the time, and I don't have a handle on it, and that is a very uncomfortable feeling when you have that sharp point of that file just sticking out. And I know I have these are old school file holders. If you guys see them, scoop them up. I don't know who makes them, but basically they have these little clamps that you tighten, and it holds the file in place. Makes it a lot easier, and I don't feel like a sharp point digging into the palm of my hand. So I got these ready. When I go spin the heads, I'll be back with the head spun, and then I'm going to flare out the ends of these. And I don't think I showed that on video yet. Maybe I did on another one, but I'll show you how I learned how to properly do it, so I'm not messing with needing 3 hands. But I'm gonna go take care of this. I'll be back. All right, guys, as you can see, I got my center punch, but the reason why I use this is this point comes to a point and it flares out pretty good, and I can get the end of these flared out, And what I'm going to do, I got my hammer that's pretty flat on this side. I'll put one end into the tube and I give it a couple taps. Turn it around, do the same thing on this side. And gradually, as I need to, of course I'm going to have to sand that down a little bit. And I'm probably going to have to use my carbide bit to carefully get around there because I didn't want to sand these flush. It's a little easier when it's a handle that I'm currently working on, or a flat one like the sod buster. When you have jigging on this, you don't want to overdo it. So what I'm left with is a little bit of a flared end right here. And what I'm going to do is just carefully try to remove that. So I think on this end, got most of that thinned out, and I'm going to be able to sand that away. At least most of it. I got to see a little bit where I need to get. So here is a lanyard hole. It's flared out, kind of matches a little bit. The jigging kind of falls in place there. So I'm gonna go over, polish the bolsters, polish the handle, fiber wheel the edges so it's all uniform looking. Then I'll come back and show you guys a finished knife. All right, we're back. Fun project. Pretty straightforward, but the technique, and you know, of course, when you're dealing with older materials, this is a 52-year-old knife. And even if it's made out of stuff like this paca wood, things start breaking down, and this stuff can get brittle. Around some of the holes and stuff got a little bit of chipping out, and I had to smooth some of those over. And there's really not much you can do about that. And, you know, is it perfect? No, but it's close. I mean, at least I think for what it is, it's something I think most of us would be definitely happy to have. I put an edge on there, I flattened the edge, and I brought the point where it's at a point again as a razor sharp edge. I cleaned up the blades, and the biggest thing is it's no longer a double blade knife, it's a single blade knife. Added the lanyard hole. That's a pretty big lanyard hole, you know, but it's kind of cool. It adds to the character of the knife, I think. Again, good half stop. Even when it comes down, I'm not worried about it hitting that tube because it has significant clearance. The things I don't like, you know, towards the end where I was cleaning up the lanyard hole, and something you really don't think about because like on a smooth light knife like this, it's pretty straightforward. You get it, you sand it flat, and you're done. And on this, you can imagine all of those little jigging points If you don't clean that up and get them blended in, those are areas that will catch and it looks inconsistent. And it's not perfect right now. I mean, looking at it, I could see little things, but I think those are little things. If I chase, it'll just get worse. I have rounded pins on the spring pin and on the rear pin. The bolster pins, I mean, for the most part, disappeared. This side, you can see a slight hint of that. But all in all, really cool knife. I mean, definitely unique. Definitely has another lifetime ahead of itself. Easy another 50 years. And on top of that, I finished this up last night, or got most of it finished, and I just sharpened it and sanded it over and buffed it out today. So both of your knives are done, Brother Milo. All right, well, I'm gonna focus on stuff in my shop without the camera running. If I find something cool that I think won't take too long and not be too long of a video and something you guys can benefit from, I'll turn the camera back on. But thank you guys. Stay warm, stay safe.